Thank you, Dave. I'd like to run today's meeting like a seminar. I figure I'm not an expert as much as I am a facilitator. We're just getting ideas coming together here. In fact, I'll be getting some help from some friends here. So as we go along, if you have questions, we can take them. If we don't want to go into too much detail, I'm going to try to get you out of here in an hour. So if we get in too deep in particular discussion, I'll just say we can table it until later. Also, in the back of the room, I see a lot of you picked them up. There's two handouts here. One is Four Seasons Realty has put up a sheet that's called 10 Easy Ways to Become a Green Homeowner. And there's tips there. The other thing that's you're welcome to, if you haven't already got it on the way out, is a sheet about our place called The Greening of Oak Hill. And it's got information about a lot of things we'll be talking about today. It's also got our email and name, and phone numbers on there, so help yourself to that. There was a time when environmentalists were considered to be tree-hugging hippies. They lived in communes and subscribed to Mother Jones news magazine, wore hemp shirts, maybe smoked a little hemp. And as time has gone on, thanks to people like T. Boone Pickens and Ted Turner's getting into it, and Al Gore, that environmentalists have gotten to be a little more in the forefront, mainstream. So it's kind of cool to be green nowadays. In fact, you can get your picture in the paper. Now, this is the only research study I'm going to point out about proving global warming. It's interesting, too, that it's the cartoonists that seem to be able to capture the essence of things in a nutshell. This is Jeff McNally from Green Bay Gazette. And he's essentially captured the whole problem here. We're going through global warming, but yet why is it so cold outside? Well, it's because of climate change. As the Earth warms up slightly, we're getting tremendous variations in weather. And just this winter, I mean, already it's record snowfalls in London. We've had 20 below zero days earlier this year that we haven't had. Our record snowfalls. The flood of 2008. Hurricane Katrina, all these things are going on probably because of global warming. Now, I want to recommend some reading to you. This is a very good book. Tom Friedman's Hot, Flat, and Crowded. And you read this book, you probably won't sleep very well at night because he's got some very scary things about what's happening to our planet. He also ends with a ray of hope about the fact that this green revolution is going to maybe save the American economy. This might be the thing we can use to start exporting to other countries. So it's a very good book, and I'd recommend it highly. This picture shows the way we've been using energy over the past 200 years, and there's a lot of significance here. One thing is that back in the 19th century, we were pretty much on a carbon-neutral fuel system. We burned wood. Burned wood to heat our homes, to run our steam engines, our trains. And around 1850 is when the genie began to come out of the bottle. Now, before that time, we were carbon neutral because trees growing in the forest actually sequester carbon and give off oxygen. And when we burn the wood, yes, we're releasing some of that carbon dioxide, but it's a zero-sum game. We're just releasing the carbon dioxide that was grown by the trees in back when they were in the forest. But what's happening now is that, back in about 1850, this is when we started using coal at the Industrial Revolution. One of the reasons is that coal is got much more energy concentrated. So if you've got a train with a tender and back full of wood, or could be full of coal, that train can run a lot farther on a load of coal than it could be a load of wood. There's the energy density there. You've also got, for gasoline, we know that gasoline's got a lot better energy density than ethanol. So that's one of the reasons we started using these alternative fuels. And as you can see over time, now we're using tremendous amounts of coal, oil, natural gas, and very little renewables. Here's a picture of how we use different fuels for generating electricity. Right now, coal is used for 50% about half of the electricity generation in this country is generated from coal. In Wisconsin, it's about 70%. And there's a big problem here because coal is not clean. I mean, there's no such thing as clean coal. So we've got a tremendous amount of energy that's being wasted and carbon dioxide being put in the atmosphere because of we're using coal so much. So what you talk to people like T. Boone Pickens and others, they're suggesting that we're going to have to go through a tremendous change. T. Boone Pickens is talking about using more natural gas. There's talk about cap and trade programs that would reduce the impact of coal, but those are really only going to be things like well, it's kind of like the salary caps in baseball, that they're going to level off the amount of production we can get out of different energy sources. But the important thing I want to show you here is the fact that, another thing I want to show you too is that this is going to change. Permits for new coal systems are pretty much drying up. The public service commissions and regulatory agencies aren't giving out new permits for new coal systems. But nuclear is on its way back. Since 1973, there haven't been any new nuclear plants being built in the country, but now there are about 34 permits have been taken out, and there's going to be a lot of nuclear coming out. So there's going to be a big energy shift. We've got to do this. The other big thing that we've got to do is start using more renewable energy. But the problem there is that we've got a long way to go. Now, if you look up, well, here's a slide that shows you, here's a renewable energy component of the energies we're using. And you'll see that a lot of hydroelectric, a lot of biomass, but solar is only about 1% of the energy we're using to generate electricity nowadays is taken from solar. And wind is less than 0.5%. This is about 2005. This is changing dramatically, but we've got a long way to go, is my point. This will kind of illustrate the problem. Since energy production, consumption since 1992 through about 2005 has been growing steadily. But notice that this chart is gauged in petawatts. Now a petawatt is a billion megawatts. That's a very, very large number. We're using tremendous amounts of electricity in this country. And the charts that show you, we are generating a lot more, putting in a lot of new systems, but the charts are all measured in megawatts. And as a result, we've got a long way to go. Now, it's growing rapidly, but we've got to put about 1 million times the capacity that we've got right now. Now, here in Wisconsin, the amount of solar panels that have been being put in is dramatically increasing. And one of the reasons we're seeing this is that there's just more awareness, there's more and more people willing to consider it. But another thing that's been either helping or hindering the whole process is the fact that we have federal grants. When we put our solar panels in 2006, we were going to do it anyway, but we staggered the timing in such a way that we could take advantage of a federal tax credit that would be available, about $2,000. My personal feeling that these tax credits are a very dysfunctional way to incent people to put in solar panels or renewable energy, because they're so unpredictable. The Budget Repair Act, when the bankers were given a bailout back in October, the very first banking bailout bill in Congress, a lot of riders were tacked on, and there were some energy credits being given for new wind systems were thrown into that budget bill. Well, that helped people who were ready to put in wind systems, but if you didn't put it in at the right time, then you might miss out on the credits. Very dysfunctional way. A little few minutes we'll be talking about an energy buyback, which is a far better way to do this. Let's talk about wind for a minute. Now, this is a map that shows where the winds blow throughout the country. Of course, they're strongest in the center part of the country. And one thing I want you to notice is that over here in Wisconsin, we've got, our wind map shows, there we are, that the winds are only fair to poor. But we've got a lot of interest in bringing windmills into Wisconsin. Well, part of the reason is that even with fair to poor winds, we've got, if you use the right kind of big windmills, then perhaps you can get some energy out of it. And this is why Eco-Energy is very active in southern Wisconsin right now, trying to put in windmills, and that raises a lot of siting issues. We can get into those later on. But the central problem we have with wind is that although the wind is produced in the central part of the country, that's the best place to produce wind, where we want to use our electricity is out on the coasts. So we've got a distribution problem. So one of the ways if we're gonna solve our energy problem, getting away from coal and other energy, and we go to wind, we're gonna have to build a large, intelligent power grid. And this is gonna cost maybe $1 trillion. That's another one of these infrastructure items that the government's considering. We don't know how this is going to take place. It's possible that the electric industry itself might want to fund this, but that's one of the things we're going to need if we're going to make this all work. To show you an idea of how, and I said earlier that the winds are fairly poor here in southern Wisconsin. Well, in order to get enough energy out of the wind to make it economically feasible, what you need is very, very big turbines. That's just the hub of one of the Acciona turbines that are being considered by Eco-Energy to be putting over in Magnolia and Union Township. This will give you an idea of the size issue. These big turbines are about, to the top of their fan blades, are about 440 feet. And you can see by comparison what a high voltage tower looks like, or a house and things of this nature. This Herbs windmill, I'm going to show you some pictures of some neighbors of ours who put up a windmill on their property. That's about 140 feet high, so by comparison you can see that that's relatively small. The biggest issue is the big turbines, is they are so big and so unsightly, and there are problems with siting them too close to neighbors. And that's the big debate that's going on over in Union Township and Magnolia now about how close they should be able to permit these things to be put in. The kind of ordinances that the people want to put in over there will pretty much prevent the big turbines from coming in. So there'll be a big issue going on there.
Dave, got a
yep.
question. Is the reason they want to put them up so big and so high is for commercial use only? I mean, isn't there sufficient amount of wind closer to the ground for smaller applications?
Okay, so the question is, why do you have to build them so big? If they were closer to the ground, it would be less expensive, and so essentially you're building the big turbines mostly for commercial applications.
Yeah, that's...
okay, well, two things. One is that actually a windmill has to you have to get above the tree line, you have to get way up above the ground because of turbulence. The best place to put windmills are going to be out on, like say, Lake Michigan, or out on the coast, out in water, where there's no trees or no buildings or anything like that to cause turbulence. So in order to get the best out of the available wind at a given place, you have to get way above the tree line. And the bottom of the blade has to be, they say, at least about 50 feet above the tree line. So that's one issue. The other one is that in order to, you have to get as big a fan as possible to get the most energy out of a given wind situation. And that's why these things have to be so big. So in order to get high enough and big enough, that's why they're such humongous things are being built. And that makes it even, it's only practical basically for companies like Eco-Industry to come in and finance these things. And they basically want to rent space for it. On the other hand, there's a whole class of windmills that are being put in, like our neighbors, the Herbs, and these are smaller, and these are going to be done privately. So,
right.
Dave and Lynn they've just put up a windmill. expect at the end of this year, theirs is rated at about 20 kilowatts, and they expect to be able to become energy independent. In other words, this thing, over the course of a year, should generate more electricity than they use. And right now they're being paid by the electric company for electricity they don't use and put out in the system. And they expect to earn more money than they actually build.
Okay, what's the payback and something like that?
Long time. In general, renewable energy projects cost a lot up front, and they take a long time. In their case, they're talking maybe about 15 years. Of course, Lyle Ackerman will be talking about something here in a minute that's going to change that dynamic. But right now, in their case, it's about a 15 or 20-year payback period. This is an interesting phenomenon. You know, there's really not a crisis going on right now in the renewable. You know, we're talking about a job. We're having trouble with layoffs and jobs. Well, in the renewable industry, there will be plenty of jobs available, and there's a training program going on now. The Midwest Renewable Energy Association operates here in Wisconsin. They put on a big energy fair every summer, and they've gone more and more into training. So one of the partnerships that were worked out with Herbs when they built the windmill is they said, okay, MREA came in and said, we'll help you build your windmill if we can hold a school in your site. So what happened was they had a training school, and this is in a barn. The windmill's off to the right, and they had classes in there, and then they go out in the afternoons and actually build a windmill. So this way, a windmill that cost them about $80,000 cost them considerably less because they essentially got free labor. And a lot of people here got trained as installers. So this is the next phenomenon. There's a lot of jobs going to be available in the renewable energy field. In short, it's going to be the big industrial scale windmills that are going to solve the energy problem for us. And we're going to see there's not going to be that many residential ones available because of costs and construction problems and things like that. Here's where I think the solar industry is going to take off, is at the local level for PV panels. What we're going to see is more and more neighborhoods with solar panels on the roof. And they'll be producing electricity locally and then feeding it back to the community. There's some issues. There's one controversy we've had. In fact, it's going on here in Janesville right now. There's a Phil Schumann family that you may have heard about that wants to put a solar array in their backyard, and they're running into trouble with the city as far as zoning. So they're still, and the city's trying to decide how to handle these things. That's going to be an increasing tension between appearance of these things and then their function. Lyle Ackerman will tell you in a minute about some of the issues about dealing with the zoning problems. But the important thing to realize is that this is the wave of the future. I think that's where you're going to see the biggest growth in your photovoltaics is going to be in local neighborhoods, where the electricity that aren't used by the homeowners themselves can be sold back to the grid. For instance, in the summertime, power companies have a big issue about trying to generate enough electricity to handle air conditioning. So they have to put on peaking generators, and they have to buy electricity over the grid and bring it in. But as we have more and more neighborhoods with solar panels available, then they'll be generating electricity, feeding it back out to the grid, and we'll be producing clean energy locally that will reduce the need or help alleviate the need for the long power lines. And I think there's that's a big trend here. At this point, I'd like to share the spotlight here with Lyle Ackerman. He's going to tell you about the panels he put in his home, and then a little bit about solar buyback.
Hi, we put this up, we cranked it up on September 12th. It's 5.6 kilowatts, 5,600 watts. Projected it would do 2/3 of my power for the year. I couldn't get any more on the roof. Alliance buyback, or they have an incentive, and they only pay you one time. So I thought if I put 12 panels up there and really like this and add some more, they're not gonna help me. And they're gonna pay me about 22% of that cost. So I thought, I'm gonna do as much as I can. That's as much as I could do. And it should have been about 2/3 of my costs over the year. During the summer, they'll be buying from me. During the winter, I'm buying from them. It all worked out to about 2/3. Can you go to the next picture? Show you the meters. That was with net metering. Net metering, this meter will spin whenever the sun's on, even when the sun isn't out. These panels are so much more sensitive than they used to be. I mean, it was a super cloudy day when we fired up, and the other one started going backwards. Just amazing. But anyhow, that one reads my solar output. The other meter, once it feeds into a breaker, once my house is satisfied that we have all the power we need, this meter starts going backwards. The Alliant meter, the one they read, and it's amazing how fast it goes backwards. And they're buying, I buy for 11 cents. When I'm selling back, they're buying for 11 cents. Well, first of the year, they started a new program, a buyback program, and now I changed the meters around a little bit, and they're buying all my green energy for 25 cents a kilowatt. And I'm buying all my energy from them for 11 cents. And so now I'm gonna have some income at the end of the year. It's not gonna be 2/3 anymore. I should be in a lot better shape. You can see the WE energies, it's full, all the applications. They only allowed like, I forget, 536 kilowatts, mine's 5.6, so there's only so many people can get into the program. So it's one of those things you wanna get into quick, because they're trying it out. It's a 10-year contract. The only person that can get out of it is me. They can't back out of it. And
Well, use the microphone a little more.
well, it's really popular over in Milwaukee with WE energies like that, and it's a waiting list to get on it. And I can't imagine anybody's gonna drop out of the program. The Alliant one just started, first of the year. We just changed the meters last Wednesday to satisfy what they want. So now they'll be reading 2 meters, but they're gonna buy all my energy. Everything I produce isn't just gonna be what I have excess. They're gonna buy every bit of it for 25 cents. So that'll help me as far as payback in the long run. So, and as far as speaking to the issues on the cities, they don't know what to do. And they're all looking to other cities to give them some guidance on how to set some rules. At least Janesville so far hasn't blundered and made a bad rule, but they probably will if past history's any. Hopefully they'll be green oriented and we have leadership to push them in that direction so they won't try to stop these things. Because if you go down the street and look at the rows of houses, there's not a lot that are dead south. A lot more of them could use a pole mount or could use a ground mount where you can get that thing oriented so you can get the most energy out of it. And it'll open the market a lot more for people that are selling this stuff. That short enough?
Yeah.
We warned them I talk too much sometimes.
Well, tell them a little bit about the basic system and the...
Oh, the basic system, they're using this Sanyo 200 panels the same as I did. I used them because you get more, they're expensive, but they use up less area to produce more power. He's got 16 of them, so he's got 3.2 kilowatts of power. It isn't a tracking, it's a fixed array, but you'll see they have tracking systems that'll track left to right, you know, 2-axis, but that really drives the cost up. It's a good deal, because it'll increase your capacity about 35%, but it's awfully expensive. So he's got a fixed array at optimum angle, and just putting a pole on it is quite expensive, because that's at 30 grand. If he did it for 30 grand, he did well. You know, just mounting that pole and getting it set in is quite expensive deal.
What do you think the payback is going to be for them?
I don't know. I don't know what their usage is or anything like that in the store, and I guess they've got a lot of monitoring stuff inside the store you can look at. And I don't know if the 30,000 that they put in the Gazette is an accurate figure or not, because I thought, boy, they did really well if they did that pole mount and everything they've got for $30,000, but they may have.
Physically, how big is that?
These panels are about 3 feet by 31 inches by not quite 4 feet. They weigh 31 pounds, and I would have chose those panels too for that because they're so light and easy to work with, and And the more area you have, you're going to need, those racks all have to be certified to get the money back, and, all, and rightfully so, they should be, you know, come with certification for testing and all that, so that they'll withstand the wind, because they can't be given away, and they're really expensive racks. So the smaller panel you can use, the better there too. Just that'd be my choice if I was doing that.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to go back to the buyback for a minute, so let me.
Okay.
Thank you very much. While we're here, I wanted to point out one important thing about this buyback. Remember I said earlier that we're having a big issue trying to decide how to incent people to put in solar systems, decide when to do it or not. And the government has been trying to use these tax breaks, and I don't think that's a very efficient way. The beauty of these new buyback programs that are being proposed is that as someone who's considering putting a system in, we can plan a lot better. The basic idea here is that right now in Janesville, I'm paying about 9 cents a kilowatt hour out in the country through the RCECA. And I think in town, what are you paying, about 11 or 12 cents a kilowatt hour when you're buying electricity? Okay, the idea here is that we're going to essentially, for someone who produces electricity on their roof, and like Lyle's going to do now, their roof array is going to be doing nothing but producing, then they'll pay 25 cents. This is part of a green, you know, you've probably heard about these green energy programs where you can go and say, okay, I want to get green energy sent to my house, and I'm willing to pay a premium for that. So you pay the system, and then what they'll do is they'll take electricity that's coming, they'll basically subsidize a windmill way out in Kansas somewhere, and then on the receiving end, you're paying more for that electricity, and you're just helping the whole system work. This way, this is the same variation of that same green energy program, but the idea is that they'll pay you a premium for this electricity. Well, as someone who's considering putting in a system, this gives me a way to plan. I know that for 10 years I'm going to be able to sell electricity at that rate, and it's a lot easier to plan. So these are going to be very helpful programs. What's happening to solar panels is that right now the silicon panels, the type that we've shown you here, that we see on most roofs now, are made out of silicon. And their efficiency is getting better and better. Actually, right now, a good solar panel will only produce about 20% of the amount of the energy that's falling on the solar panel. About 20% of it gets converted to electricity. And this is improving somewhat. There's a whole new generation of solar panels that are going to be coming on the market, and they're going to show great promise. They're not as efficient as the silicon solar panels, but you can afford to buy more of them because they'll be dramatically cheaper. The only issue right now is that this is a new technology. These things will be able to be laid out like shingles on a roof. You don't have to be on the solar panels. They'll be easier to install. They have a side product or a side benefit in that they're made from cadmium and tellurium. It goes into the manufacturing process. And these are minerals that can be gotten out of mining waste, so it'll be a way of actually recycling mining waste to make solar panels. So these are going to be on the market, and there's trends like this, greater efficiency and some of the newer technologies that are going to dramatically reduce the cost of solar panels on roofs. So that's why we say that the home market is probably the place where this is going to see the greatest growth over the coming years. Our place is, we call our place Oak Hill. Every great home has to have a name like Tara and something like that. Well, we call ours Oak Hill because it's on a hill and we have oak trees around. We have a variety of systems in here, and I'll be talking about some of them later. Right now, the solar panels are the ones. Oh, by the way, that's our website, and this handout I have, plus other materials I'll be putting up on that website from time to time. Sometimes I'll get it up there. The website is also on this handout, so you can get that later on. One of the problems with solar panels is they're great in the summertime, but we have this problem in the wintertime. Actually, we look to summertime as being the time for greatest production, and that's when it's going to be the most useful, because that's when, during the summer, our solar production is basically offsetting our air conditioning. So. Another thing, what we have also is called a battery backup system. Now, when I first put this system in, I was thinking of, could we become energy independent? We really didn't know. We've done a lot of things with this house that were very, I guess, experimental. And one of them was to put in this battery backup system. These things are the inverters. They're the things that convert the direct current that's coming out either from the solar panels or the batteries into alternating current to be fed into the house. And then I have a panel of about 16 deep cycle batteries. These are instrumented. These yellow wires up here allow us to instrument the system so we can measure things. So what I've done, what I can do over time is just see what's going on. In our system, what we're trying to do is use as much production during the day, and whatever we produce, we use ourselves and then sell the rest to the power company. When we first put it in, my idea was to take the power that we weren't using during the day and put it in the batteries and then use it at night. But it turned out for a number of reasons that wasn't, it was helpful, but it wasn't all that efficient. The cost of the batteries were very large. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't be using a battery system. So we went on to a net metering system where we sell any excess electricity to the power company. And here's one day where we took an experiment where we actually went off the grid, shut it off, and the solar panels took over it, so they were running all the power we needed. And then at the end of the day, we went back on the grid, and then it shows you what was happening here. I won't go into more detail here. I can talk to you about it afterward if you want to understand what's going on. But the whole idea is that we've instrumented this, and we've learned a lot about how these systems work. Here's an issue that you've got to consider when you're planning solar systems. Their phantom loads take up a lot of power that you don't suspect. Go around, these are just most of the ones in our house, but you can go around your house and find them. Every little brick that you have that charges your cell phones or for instance, a TV set, just waiting for you to press the remote to turn it on, consumes a certain amount of electricity. Most electrical appliances we have in the houses consume a little bit of electricity. And here's some examples of them. Actually, one of the biggest energy users is our satellite. I've been getting internet off the satellite. We also have a dish satellite receiver, dish TV, and those remotes actually have to broadcast a signal down to the receiver in order to change channels. Well, they take a lot of electricity. I'm going through AAA batteries all the time in the remotes, and the receiver itself has a phantom load of 25 watts. So if you add all these things up, plus our refrigerator running, we've got a total phantom watt load of about 150 watts. That's just this. If you add the refrigerator, it gets up to about 200. And like when we're measuring things, we're finding that there's basically a phantom load of all these things that are going on in the background now, about 400 watts. But it's less trouble for us. Instead of going around and unplugging everything at night, and then having to plug it back in the morning and set all the clocks, it's ridiculous. So we just take that as one of our background loads. Another type of solar panel you'll see in houses is a solar hot water system. Briefly, these use fluids like water, or some of them have things like antifreeze in them. But they're basically taking sunlight that's heating water and circulating it through the system into these big tanks. And then they can be used for hydronic heating. Again, I won't go into a lot of detail here, but that's another type of solar systems that are being put up. These are generally much less expensive to put in than the solar panels. Let's talk a little bit about geothermal. There's three different ways of, well, first of all, a geothermal system is one that basically is a heat pump that's taking energy out of the earth and putting in the house, or vice versa. And to do that, you have to have a bed, a way of fluids to be radiated into the ground. So you can do it two or three different ways. One of them is to have the loops go into a lake or a river. Another way is like we have loops laid horizontally in the ground. And the third way is if you don't have enough real estate to have a ground loop system, you can drill like wells and you put the pipes down there. The whole idea is to get down into the ground where it's efficient to transmit heat back and forth. Here at our house, we had room for a large horizontal bed. At the time we built the house, we put the house up on kind of a hill here, and then we had a terrace that we were able to actually lay out the geothermal pipes. This is what they look like. Each of these runs are about 100 feet long, and they're made out of a black plastic that's very durable. They're put together by heat welding. So these header pipes that go across the front and tie them together are fused together with heat weld. And then fluid is run through these systems. This is the pump. It looks a lot like an air conditioner. In fact, these are basically like air conditioners that run both ways. You know, a traditional air conditioner will run a compressor in such a way that they generate cool fluid, and that's run into your A coil in your house. A geothermal system just runs both ways. When it's heating the house, it's basically taking the heat that's thrown off from the compression and throwing that into the house. An important issue, though, is the sizing. If you size up, like we have a 3-ton system for a house that we consider to be about 2,000 square feet, and that seems to work pretty well. If you size a geothermal system to be big enough to heat your house well, you may get it too big, so it's not efficient for cooling, or it's too efficient. In other words, it's overkill. They will ice up. So you have to very carefully size these things. Now, there's kind of a feeling that if you get down low enough, you can get into the ground about a certain depth, maybe 10, 15 feet, and the temperature down there is a constant 55 degrees. And that's true for deep well systems that drill down. Actually, in a horizontal bed, the temperatures are changing a lot. All it takes, here's an example where we measured what was going on between December of one year into the following March. So we went through a winter, summer, and into the following winter. And what this shows is the temperatures of the fluid that's going out into the bed. Now, when we're heating the house, what we're doing is we're taking essentially cold water. In order to heat, the compressor has to chill the fluid, take the excess heat that's thrown off, and throw that into the house. And so it sends out a cool fluid, and then we're depending on the fluid to actually be warmed up by the ground and come back into the house where the process is repeated. It only takes a 6-degree temperature differential. And these things can operate as, like here we are actually sending fluid out that's below freezing. It's got antifreeze in it. But you can actually, we're getting heat out of frozen earth, so to speak. Because now our bed is getting a little more efficient because it runs at about a 9 or 10 degree differential, but that's the point. We're just basically warming the fluid up a little bit, and then you can send it back in and wring the heat out of it. Same way in the summertime when we're cooling the house, then we're taking a warm fluid and dumping it out into the field and actually have that heat be dissipated. That's a lot more efficient than a traditional air conditioner that just has a fan blowing into the open air and trying to get rid of the heat that way. And that's one of the reasons these geothermal systems are so efficient. Also, there's a certain amount of solar heating the soil that these beds are in. So in the summertime, the temperature inside the bed can get up almost 80 degrees. What we're doing with the geothermal system is basically transferring. We're not burning electricity to generate heat. We're just using electricity for a heat pump. And as a result, here's why geothermal systems, how efficient they are, how inexpensive they are. Basically, a heat pump can, if you measure heat in BTUs, how much BTUs a system is generating, for every 4 BTUs that you're generating, it only takes about 1 BTU equivalent of electricity to do it. So as a result, this is a comparison over, I think, a 2,000 square foot house for about a year. But under similar circumstances, the geothermal system, this is what's called a water furnace, and they make geothermal pumps for a variety of manufacturers. It's one that's commonly used. Here we're talking about this cooling costs for a year for $662. And then A propane system can cost as much as $2,000 to do the same amount of heating and cooling. So these geothermal systems are extremely efficient. Question? We've been keeping track of our building history over time, and when we first built the house, we were buying electricity for about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. We built our house to be disability accessible, and because we were able to give skilled nursing care to my wife's dad and my own dad for a while. So during a period when we were actually we had to keep the temperature during the wintertime in the house at 76 degrees. We were washing an awful lot of blankets and bedding and things of that nature, and very inefficient about the way we used our electricity. But we had the geothermal system and a wood-burning stove, furnace outside, and of course that's essentially free heat in the wintertime. But we were basically, what this red line here is a rolling average of the previous 12 months' electric bills. So basically we can see that during this period here, we were still costing about $1,600 a year for all our energy. And because that's the only energy we had to buy. The rest we either got from burning wood or by using the geothermal system. And then when we put the battery system in, there were other things going on here. Basically, by the time we put in our PV panels, we were able to generate enough of our own power that we were down to about $1,000 a year total electricity we were buying. Then our furnace gave out. I had to replace it. So for the end of that year, we were using the geothermal a lot more to heat in the wintertime than we normally would. But the point is that with a house like ours, where we've got solar panels, we've got geothermal heating and cooling, and a wood-burning furnace, we can keep our energy costs down to $1,000 a year total for all the energy we buy. And that means I got to cut wood all winter long. If I can't do that, then we're going to be spending more. But this is the sort of efficiencies we can get. One issue with geothermal heat is that it's, remember we were talking earlier about energy capacity and different kinds of fuels. Have you seen these ads on TV? There's two guys are going around in a house, and he's a burly guy, and it says propane across his chest. And there's kind of a wimpy guy that he's making fun of all the time that says electricity. And what they're trying to show, the idea is that if you got a propane system, it's much more robust, it heats water faster. Well, that's true. Geothermal systems, for a system that's sized like ours is, works pretty well down to about 15 degrees outside. And then below that, once the temperature outside gets below 15 degrees, it really struggles to keep up. Our furnace gave out a year ago. Heatmore was very good about replacing it. And so we've got a new system, which is a combination corn and wood burner. It came configured for corn. Nowadays, the price of corn is still pretty high. It's not a very good way to do it. So I buy pellets from a company called Agricol. And so we get these pellets. You can also buy them from Menards. So for the first part of the winter, we were putting wood pellets in here and burning those. And between then, the geothermal and the pellet burner, we could get the house down to about 0 degrees outside temperature, and it could barely keep up. So a few weeks ago, when the temperature really went down 20 below 0, I had no choice but to convert the burner to wood and then start burning wood, and then we could get through the winter. So these systems are, they're not without their problems, and you have to be willing to cut a lot of wood if you're going to use them to save money. One of the secrets to being able to have a geothermal system work efficiently is to have very good insulation. So we built the home with what are called insulated concrete forms. And these are basically styrofoam with holes inside. So they can be built up. They're very easy to work with. They can be, that tower we have in back, conventional concrete forms are very hard to build. But they're easy to assemble with the, so that tower base could be built up just out of these insulated concrete forms, and then later on concrete and rebar was put down in here, and that's what made the foundation. So these are very efficient insulators, and they're very strong and they're very easy to build. The inside of the house is also sprayed with a polyurethane foam. That's goes. Now we only have standard 2x4 by 16-inch construction, but this polyurethane foam was sprayed in all the crevices and openings, and this is a natural vapor barrier, fills all the crevices so that you don't have air infiltration, and that's giving us about R21 on the walls. So the inside of our tower, I decided I wanted to have a real silo tower so it would look like a silo. So this thing was built offline and had to be brought up with a crane. One of the problems we had before we went to foam the inside is it was in April and we were getting condensation inside. A lot of things we did in the house we'd never done before, nobody had done before. So, you know, how could you spray foam on the inside of a tower and make it stick? We weren't sure. We had to get a big heater in here. That's our contractor, that's Kevin Ferguson, Ferguson Customs Homes. And thanks to the good relationship we had, we were able to try a lot of these things that Kevin was willing to design into the home. And anyway, we had to just dry the whole thing out, and then it was possible to spray this polyurethane foam up on the inside of the tower. And the result is very, very good. It's very good for sound. It's a very pleasant place to work. And it's just a wonderful thing. One other thing we have is called is passive solar. We have the south side of the house, which is a room that has sand and cement blocks covering the floor, and then that's covered with 2 inches of concrete. The whole idea is this created a thermal mass that holds the heat. We could, if we wanted to, actually harvest heat out of here. But it turned out the windows, we bought the same efficiency windows all throughout the house because we were able to get one contract for the whole thing. And so actually the windows for the solarium are too efficient. They keep out too much sunlight. So rather than trying to harvest heat out of there, we decided just to make it into a natural space that, it took about 3 years for the temperature to get stabilized. But now we're in a situation here where after about 3 years, we were measuring temperatures going on outside, and on days where the temperature got down to 10 below zero, we're still 50, 60 degrees inside the solarium, and we're not adding or taking away any heat. It's just that's the whole concept of thermal mass throughout the house that is able to stabilize that temperature. We also have we also have tile floors throughout the house, and that's a form of thermal mass, plus it's a good building material. One other thing we've done around the house is we've put prairie grass all around and trying to mow it. You know, getting back, we were talking earlier about the conflict in urban areas between people put in solar panels. Well, there's also a conflict with people who want to put in prairies. A year ago, we had a volunteer out at Asbury United Methodist Church who wanted to plant a prairie out near the church. And he did. It's beautiful, but the neighbors got all excited about it, and I guess there's been quite a problem here. So that's one of the things. It would be much better, actually, if we all put prairies in instead of mowed grass. Here's the prairies around our house during the summertime. Attracts birds, attracts butterflies. It's a beautiful place, ecologically wonderful. Nearby, we have a neighbor who is just dead set on mowing, and he's got about an acre-and-a-half lawn, which he mows almost within an inch of his life. One of the issues is, this actually tells you two things. First of all, one dirty lawnmower, you know, the old push-type mower that you push right around, puts out as much pollution as 40 automobiles. That's more of a tribute to the auto industry, how we've gotten autos to be quite clean nowadays, you know, with catalytic converters and all. But it's still the case that if you just 1 hour of pushing a lawnmower around a yard, it generates more organic compounds than driving in an automobile for 350 miles. At the same time, this is something that I got a Tom Freeman's book that kind of amazed me. It's still true that deforestation is a big problem for the globe. We've got farmers down in Brazil that are clearing large areas of land and burning and throwing a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It turns out that for all the CO2 emissions that's coming off the planet, 20% of that's due to deforestation and activities like that. And that's more than all the emissions from our entire transportation system. Planes, trains, automobiles throughout the world. So I guess what it really points out is that we've got a, this is a very complicated problem. Solving this is something we've got to do globally. If we cut our emissions down, that's great, but if China keeps on building dirty coal plants, that's not going to solve the problem. If we don't do something about deforestation, all the energy benefits that we have are just going to be for naught. So one of the things this is kind of my last slide, I asked the question, is this basically a sun setting on a world that's so screwed up already that we're aren't going to be able to save it? Some people say that we've already put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, caused more of a greenhouse gas problem than can be, that the world is already at the point where even if we stopped today, if we could stop all the CO2 emissions today, we'd still be 30 to 50 to maybe 100 years before the planet would get back to where it was before. So we may already be beyond the point where we can't fix it by cutting back global emissions. On the other hand, if we keep on pouring CO2 into the atmosphere, then we're going to have even a worse problem. So it's a very, very complicated thing. Of course, you could look this another way. This is a sunrise, and it's just the beginning of the green revolution. And if we do it right, pretty soon we'll be able to be selling clean technology to the Chinese and to other people. And we'll be able to somehow convince the rest of the world that we all got to get together and stop the CO2 emissions, and maybe we can save the planet before it's too late. So that's the end of the formal part of the talk. If you have questions, we can talk a few minutes. I kept my promise. We're almost, still got 5 minutes to go. We can take a few more questions, or if you want, we can break and just chat informally afterward. If you'd like to pursue any of this, even if you'd like to come out and see the house, just give me a call ahead of time, and I'd be more than happy to have you come and see it. We'll also be on the solar home tour in October that the Midwest Renewable Energy Association puts on around the year. So, are there any questions right now?
Thank you.
And I'll say thank you for coming.